Hey everyone, welcome to the introduction to algebra. Kind of before we get started into the book, before we kind of really go into any lessons where we're actually working on problems, I just want to give you a little introduction to algebra, because algebra is a complicated subject and algebra is challenging all the way through it. And so what I want to do today is just go through some things that can help you succeed, some things that will help you to be better students this year as you are going through your algebra class. So let me just say welcome. Thank you for coming to my class, and thank you for being part of what's going on here. So let's try to learn some things today, okay? The first thing I want to talk about is, why is it important to study algebra? Why is it important to study algebra? Well, you see I have some things here on the screen in front of you. Number one, it's superior. It's superior. What do I mean by that? Well, you learned a lot in first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. You learned a lot in elementary. You learned a lot in middle school. But all of those things that you learned in basic arithmetic, they have limitations. You can't do everything that you need to do with just arithmetic. And so algebra takes all of that arithmetic that you learned, and what it does is it packages it, it puts it into a format that you can take to the next level. You can solve problems that you could never solve before. Okay. Number two, it's necessary. It's necessary. There is no way to continue in math without algebra. You can't do pre-calculus. You can't do trigonometry. You can't do geometry. You can't do anything else in math if you don't know algebra. Algebra is the next step that you must have. It's a prerequisite to you continuing, to you going further in mathematics. So it's necessary. You have to have it. And the third thing I have there is, it's useful. Probably the biggest thing that I hear from my students is, Mr. Steve, when am I ever going to use this? I'm never going to use this. Well, I will tell you that maybe you will never use algebra in your life in a practical way. What am I saying? You may never work in a job. You may never have an actual problem in life that you would have to use a plus 3 equals 10. You might not ever do that. But what you will use, I promise you, what you will use is the problem solving, number one, the logic that it teaches you, number two, and number three, you will learn in this class how to follow the rules. How to follow the rules. Some of you just aren't really good at following rules. Sometimes I'm not very good at following the rules. And algebra has helped me to understand that there is a logical progression to the rules that I need to follow. And if I'm going to have success solving any sort of a problem in life, sometimes I need to follow the rules. Most of the time I need to follow the rules. If I do something out of order, if I do something wrong, I'm going to end up having a problem in the solution. Okay? So it's superior, it's necessary, and it's useful. All right, the second thing that we want to look at today is, where did algebra come from? I think this really goes a long ways to helping us to understand why we need to learn it as well. Because if you look at it, look, the very first thing I have there is it came from Babylon. If you know much about Babylon, Babylon is it's an old word from basically Bible times, way back in 2000 BC, before Christ. So 2,000 years before Christ walked on the face of the earth, in Babylon, they were already starting to develop ideas about algebra. Well, one of the things that we see is, well, if it's been around for that long, anything that's been around for that long is probably pretty important for us to understand. Math has been around for a long time, and it's important for us to understand that. Language has been around for a long time. It's important for us to understand that. The Bible has been around for a long time. It's important for us to understand that. Anything that's been around for a long, long time like this, 2,000 years before Christ. So over 4,000 years ago, people were studying algebra. That means it's pretty important. We need to see what's going on. We need to figure it out so that we can understand why it's so important. The next place that it kind of shows up is in Alexandria around the year 2000 AD. So for about 2,000 years, people were using algebra. The concepts of algebra were there, but there was no organization of algebra. They just kind of talked about it. They didn't compile it into any books. They didn't really do anything with it, but it was there. It was being talked about. In Alexandria, you may know something about Alexandria already. Alexandria was where all the greatest libraries were, where all the books were stored. It was the intellectual capital of the world during this time. So in Alexandria, Diophantus was actually studying algebra, and he was using it to solve problems. And we have in his works and his writings, you can see where he was using the concepts of algebra to solve problems. So it kind of shows up there again. Again, Diophantus doesn't really kind of organize it. He doesn't write any books about it. He just puts it into his own journaling, into his own works. So we see it there, but again, it's not organized yet. The last place that it kind of shows up on as far as before it goes mainstream is in Baghdad in 820 AD. So another 600 years after Diophantus, in 820 AD, Al-Khwarizmi, that's his name, Al-Khwarizmi, wrote a book, and in his book, he organized, he compiled, if you will, algebra. So, the title of the book that he wrote is, and this is the English translation, obviously, but it's the Compendious Book on Calculations by Completion and Balancing. The Compendious Book on, I didn't even know what the word compendious meant, okay? I'm just going to be honest. And maybe some of you didn't know what it means either. Compendious means it is containing or presenting the essential facts of something in a comprehensive but concise way. So in other words, he took all of these different concepts that the Babylonians were talking about, that they were talking about in Alexandria, and he took them and he compiled them, he put them into a book in a concise way. The word algebra is an Arabic word, and the Arabic word is for completion, means to finish or to complete something, okay? And so that's where the word algebra comes from. In Arabic, it's two words, al and gebra, and we've kind of put it into one word in English, algebra. So, in algebra, the problems are completed by balancing them. And that's where you kind of go back up there to the name of the book, the Compendious Book on Calculations. And you've been doing calculations. That's what you've been doing in 1st through 8th grade. You've been doing calculations. Now, here in algebra, we are going to kind of take and we're going to do calculations still, but we're going to do them a different way. We're going to do them by completion and balancing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to balance them, just like a scale where you put something heavy on this side of the scale and this side goes up. What you have to do in algebra is you have to remember that I'm balancing things. So if I take something away from this side, I must also take something away from this side. And what that's going to do is that's going to balance the equation. So we're going to get into that. It's basically what we're going to be talking about all year long is balancing. Different ways to do it, things like that. The idea is moving things from one side of the equation to the other side without changing. In other words, we want to solve for x. We want to find out what does x equal. And the way that we do that is we balance the equation. We balance the equation. All right, so what will we be doing? Well, balancing. Almost all year long. If you can remember this, if you can remember from day one to the final day of this course, if you can remember, I need to balance. I need to balance. Everything I do has to be based on balancing. You're going to have success. You're going to find success because you're going to remember in the back of every one of these problems that we're working on, I need to balance this. I need to keep it even, keep it the same on both sides. Okay? The second thing that we'll be doing is we're going to be thinking Yes, we're going to be thinking. We're going to be using our brains. There is a big difference between somebody that can think for themselves and somebody that has to have somebody else think for them. Usually, people that can think for themselves become leaders. They become bosses in companies. They make more money because they can think for themselves. And algebra helps you to be able to think for yourself. And we will learn things like that this year. Next, number 4. What does it take to learn algebra? In other words, what do I need this year? What do I need to do? How can I learn algebra? Well, probably the only thing that you can do is just spend time in algebra. Don't think that you're going to understand these concepts overnight. I may teach you a lesson, and you might have to watch that lesson 3 times before you understand it. It wasn't like that in arithmetic. Arithmetic, the teacher said something, and you could kind of get it and do it. It wasn't that big of a deal. Now in algebra, it's a big deal. Even if you were successful in arithmetic, even if you had good grades in years past, you might struggle this year in algebra. Why? Because you're getting a little bit lazy, thinking, oh, I already know how to do all this stuff. I'm good at math, blah, blah, blah. You might have a problem because you aren't spending the time that you need to spend. So don't think you're going to understand this overnight. This course will challenge you. So a little fact about algebra, this is exciting. Algebra is the most failed course worldwide. So in every country in the world, the course that has failed the most, not English, not Spanish, not science, algebra. Algebra, not calculus, algebra. Algebra is the number 1 failed. And so don't get discouraged by that. You need to realize, boy, this is going to be hard. This is going to take some time. So you better be ready this year to spend some time, more time than you've ever spent. You're going to have to study like you've never studied before. It may take you hours to get ready for a test. It may take you days to get ready for a test. So you need to spend time. Number 5, and the last thing that I have for you, how can I have success? Hard work. This kind of goes into what I was talking about before with the time that you need to spend. Not just time, but you need to work hard during that time. Why did I put a picture of an ant right there? That doesn't make sense. Yes, it does. The Bible tells us to look at the ant to see how we should work. In Proverbs chapter 6, verse number 6 through 8, the Bible says, "Go to the ant, thou sluggard." That means you lazy person. Go to the ant. If you're lazy, go to the ant. Watch the ant. Watch how the ant works. Consider her ways and be wise. Which, having no guide, no overseer, no ruler. In other words, nobody's standing over you. Here you are taking classes online. Nobody's standing over you. I'm not standing over you. For the most part, your parents, whoever else is helping you, is not standing over top of you, helping you every minute of every day. You are by yourself. You don't have a guide. You don't have an overseer. You don't have a ruler ruling in your life right now while you're watching these videos. You need to go to the ant. In verse 8, it says, "Provides meat in the summer and gathers the food in the harvest." The ant works diligently so that it can be ready when the winter comes. When the cold weather comes, when the ant has to go down inside the ground to stay warm, the ant is ready. Why is the ant ready? Because it found meat in the summer and it gathered food in the harvest. When there was food available, it did the work. The ant is a great study on how to work. So I just want to encourage you, this year, this school year, this time that you're doing these videos, trying to understand algebra, you're going to need to work hard. You're going to need to spend time. And I just want to encourage you that you can do it. You can do it. I don't expect that anyone will fail this because you don't need to. If you work hard, if you do your best, you will have success. And I will help you. We can do help classes, things like that. I'm providing videos for you. And with the help of the Lord and with your hard work, I know that you can have great success. Thanks. We'll see you later.